My name is Keisha Moore. I'm 31 years old, and for every one of those years, Christmas morning at my family's house in Savannah, Georgia, has been a meticulously choreographed performance. It's all about the aesthetics. The historic house with the wrought iron balcony, the scent of cinnamon and pecan pie, and the perfect, color-coordinated wrapping paper. And every year, exactly at 9:15 a.m., right after we finished opening the last expensive, but ultimately meaningless gift, the second performance would begin, the public humiliation of Keisha. This year, the stakes were higher, because I wasn't just working the 2 minimum wage jobs they always mocked. I had quietly been working on a life-changing secret, a fact they were about to discover in the most spectacular way possible. I always knew my mother, Diana, believed I was the odd one out. My older sister, Brielle, the perfect daughter, the successful lawyer who could do no wrong, was the star. I was the dark shadow, the reminder of a life my mother never wanted, a life she often referred to as a lapse in judgment, or more recently, an expensive mistake. The air in the sun-drenched living room was thick with tension, not from conflict, but from the forced saccharine sweetness that precedes the annual venom. Brielle was showing off the vintage diamond bracelet Dad had bought her, tilting her wrist so the light caught the stone just right. My gift, a cheap sweater I wouldn't wear, was already crumpled on the ottoman. Mom cleared her throat, adjusting the silk scarf she wore, a signal that the main event was about to start. "Keisha," she began, her voice dripping with the familiar blend of pity and disappointment. "We were just discussing Brielle's upcoming trip to the Mediterranean. It's a wonderful opportunity for networking. You know, making connections that actually lead somewhere." I just smiled, a small, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. This was the opening salvo. "It just reminds me," she continued, now leaning forward, ensuring every relative present, the aunts, uncles, and cousins who pretended to be deaf every year, could hear her perfectly, "how you really need to apply yourself. You're over 30 now. Still renting that dreadful studio apartment downtown, still driving that beat-up old car. It's embarrassing, Keisha. You have a good heart, yes, but you lack the fundamental drive for real success. Sometimes I look at your life choices and I just have to wonder." She paused for dramatic effect, letting the silence hang like a guillotine. "I just wonder what on earth went wrong. Honestly, sometimes I think your arrival was a mistake. An expensive, time-consuming mistake that pulled my focus away from what truly mattered." The room, as expected, went dead silent. Brielle looked away, pretending to care about her phone screen. Dad kept his eyes glued to the fireplace mantel. This was the moment. The annual stab to the soul that was supposed to keep me small and manageable for another year. But this year, something shifted. Just as the word mistake echoed off the high ceilings, a loud, piercing electronic ping erupted from my handbag on the floor. It wasn't my standard low-battery chime. It was the high-priority, maximum-volume notification I had specifically set for one purpose. I reached down, pulled out my phone, and before anyone could ask what it was, the screen flared, illuminating the entire side of my face with a brilliant, white light. Right there, in massive, unmissable green font, was the subject line. "Transfer completed. Mega Millions payout." Below it, the number displayed in full, $3,600,000 USD. I didn't say a word. I simply looked up from the screen, past the blinding green light of the balance, and met my mother's gaze, which had already gone from smug satisfaction to utter, horrified shock. The silence was no longer the heavy, judgmental kind. It was the sharp, panicked stillness that follows an explosion. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gulping for air. Dad's head snapped up from the mantel, his eyes darting between my face, my mother's, and the glowing screen in my hand. Brielle dropped her expensive bracelet, and it made a tiny, heartbreaking tink on the hardwood floor, a sound nobody even registered. The $3. $6 million, the silent secret I had protected for 2 months since I cashed in that single last-minute ticket at a gas station, was no longer silent. It was screaming from my phone screen, making my mother's condescending lecture sound like the pathetic, irrelevant noise it truly was. I lowered the phone slightly, just enough for the closest relatives to crane their necks and read the figure. Gasps rippled through the room. I stood up slowly, the cheap sweater falling unnoticed from my lap. I walked over to the antique mahogany cabinet where Mom kept her most prized crystal glasses, the ones she only used for special occasions, and I poured myself a generous, completely undiluted shot of Dad's ridiculously expensive single malt scotch. I didn't offer any to anyone. I took a slow, deliberate sip, letting the burning liquid hit the back of my throat before I finally spoke. "A mistake, Mom?" I asked, my voice calm, almost a whisper, but it carried perfectly in the electrified room. "You're absolutely right. My arrival was a mistake." I paused, savoring the horror on her face. "It was a mistake for you, because everything you wanted for me, the struggle, the reliance, the endless need for your guidance, just became entirely irrelevant. That apartment downtown? It was sold yesterday. That car? Gone. I'm waiting on the final papers for a condo on King Street, 3 floors, with a rooftop terrace overlooking the river. And the closing cost? Paid in cash, last week. The sheer audacity of my actions, walking away from the public execution, taking a drink without permission, and delivering the news of my immediate, permanent independence, paralyzed them. Brielle finally spoke, her voice thin and sharp. "You won the lottery? Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let us think you were struggling?" My gaze locked onto hers. "Why? So I could see exactly what you all really thought of me when I had nothing. So I could clearly distinguish the pity from the fake concern. You didn't care about my struggle, Brielle. You cared about the gap between us, the one that made you feel superior." I walked past the shocked cluster of family and paused right in front of the giant, ostentatious Christmas tree. The whole room was silent, holding its breath. This was the moment. The power shifted, and I knew I had to use it to its maximum effect. "This is the exact reason I need your help, the community that understands the struggle. If you've ever had a massive victory while your haters were busy planning your downfall, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the channel. Let them know what it feels like to win in silence." I lifted my glass again, this time towards the tree. I'm thankful this year, truly. Thankful for the clarity. Thankful for the money that bought me something far more valuable than a condo. The immediate, irrevocable ability to walk away from a toxicity that has defined me for 3 decades. Mom finally found her voice, a desperate, raspy sound. "Keisha, don't be dramatic. We're family. You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted, my tone icy. "And I am. The only thing I need to know is which of you deserves a Christmas bonus right now. Because that $3.6 million is about to start working for a new set of priorities." The question hung in the air. Were they about to switch allegiances or double down on their cruelty? The greed in the room was palpable, a foul odor replacing the cinnamon. It was a terrifying transformation, the speed with which the family dynamic fractured. Brielle, moments after criticizing me for letting them think I was struggling, was now beaming, practically vibrating with forced enthusiasm. "Keisha, honey, this is incredible news. You know that law firm I work for? They handle major investments, offshore accounts. I could manage the entire portfolio for you. We're family. Let me help you secure your future." The perfect daughter was now the opportunistic broker. Dad, who hadn't said a genuinely kind word to me in months, suddenly had his hand on my arm, squeezing with paternal affection that felt utterly performative. "That's my girl. Always knew you had that winner's spirit. We should celebrate. Get a new family photo with the big check, huh?" Imagine the local paper headline. I gently removed his hand, the warmth of his touch fading instantly. "The paper is not getting a headline, Dad. And the only thing Brielle is managing is her own student loan debt." I turned to Mom, who was now teary-eyed, shifting from anger to a manufactured maternal despair. "Please, Keisha, you can't let money change you. This changes nothing. We're your home." I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "You called me a mistake, Mom. A financial drain. A life distraction. That wasn't the money talking. That was your heart. And the money only confirmed that I was right to keep my distance, right to trust the ticket in my purse more than the people at this table." I took another sip of scotch and lowered the glass. This was not about simple vengeance. It was about surgical, undeniable independence. The most shocking plea came from my cousin, Marcus, a gentle soul who always seemed uncomfortable in my mother's orbit. He stepped forward nervously. Keisha, I know this is a bad time, but my youngest daughter, Mia, she needs that experimental therapy for her hip. It's $70,000 and we've maxed everything. Please, before you walk out, can you just consider it? His plea was different. It wasn't about lavish consumption or investing. It was about a child's mobility. The room watched me, the sharks and the one genuine petitioner, all waiting for my answer. I looked at Marcus, at the exhaustion etched around his eyes, and I knew that $70,000 was a drop in my new bucket, but a lifetime of walking for Mia. I smiled at him, a real, genuine smile this time. Marcus, please email me the clinic's wire transfer details. Include all the paperwork. Consider it done by tomorrow afternoon. The rest of the family erupted in a chorus of confused, resentful whispers. Why him? Why not the loan for Brielle's new office space? Why not the down payment on Dad's boat? I ignored them all, focusing only on Marcus, whose face was a mixture of shock and overwhelming relief. This decision was my counter-narrative, my first true act of defining my success, not as the opposite of their poverty, but as the choice to alleviate genuine suffering. I put the now empty glass on the cabinet. It's time for me to go, I announced, walking towards the front door. Mom rushed forward, her face collapsing into a mask of pure desperation. Keisha, wait. This is Christmas. We're your family. We can fix this. What do you want? Tell me. Tell me what you want, and I'll do it. I stopped at the front door, my hand resting on the icy cold brass knob. I took a deep breath, the cold Savannah air already seeping in from the crack in the door. I turned back to face them one last time. Brielle, Dad, and especially Mom, standing in the middle of their beautiful, expensive lie of a living room. The perfect Christmas setting, now utterly shattered by a single bank notification. What do I want, Mom? I asked, looking her straight in the eyes. I want the truth. I want to know why, after all these years, you felt the need to make me feel small. Not for the money, but for the clarity. I need to understand that wound before I can close it forever. I waited. The pressure of the room, the weight of the millions, the knowledge that their entire relationship with me hung on her answer, finally broke her carefully constructed facade. Mom's shoulders slumped. The expensive silk scarf seemed to weigh her down. The performance was over. It wasn't about you, Keisha, she confessed, her voice barely audible. It was about me. When I had you, I had to give up law school, a huge scholarship. Every time I looked at you, I saw the life I lost. I didn't see my daughter. I saw the choice I couldn't undo. I projected all my own resentment and failure onto you because it was easier than facing my own regret. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for making you carry that burden for 30 years. She was weeping now, not the manipulative tears from earlier, but a raw, ugly cry of pure release. The sight of her shattered, finally stripped of her control and pride, was not a moment of triumph for me, but a moment of profound, unsettling pity. It was the absolute, unadulterated truth I had always sought, and it was devastatingly ordinary. I took one final look at the house, at the remnants of a childhood spent trying to prove my worth. Then I did something truly unexpected. I walked back towards her. I didn't hug her. I didn't offer forgiveness. I simply put my hand on her shoulder, a gesture that was neither condemnation nor comfort. I heard you, Mom, and I forgive the girl who had to give up her dream. But I can't live with the woman who punished her daughter for that loss. I looked at Dad and Brielle, who stood silently, witnesses to the implosion. The money is real. My new life is happening, and I need a fresh start, far away from all of this. I walked back to the door, opened it, and stepped onto the porch. As I was about to close it, I paused. I looked back one last time at the family that was no longer a cage, but just a collection of confused, broken people. And then, I made my final and most crucial decision. I didn't drive away forever. Instead, I drove 3 blocks down to my old high school, bought 100 brand new basketballs and soccer balls, and drove them to the local children's shelter. The next morning, I called Marcus and told him to add an extra $10,000 to Mia's transfer for her future college fund. I chose to use my unexpected fortune not to punish them further, but to build a new life rooted in genuine kindness, the very thing my family had starved me of. I still had the power to walk away, but I chose to anchor my new life to something bigger than revenge. I kept the condo on King Street, but I hired my mother's former cleaning lady, a single mother who she always treated terribly, as my full-time assistant with a substantial salary, completely changing her life. My ultimate victory wasn't the money. It was the transformation of my own heart, a change that proved my mother's cruelest word was wrong. I was never a mistake. I was simply a miracle waiting to happen. Now, I want to know what you think. If you were Keisha and your family finally confessed the truth behind years of cruelty, would you have left forever? Or would you have done what I did and used your new power to change the lives of the other good people in your orbit? Let me know what you would do in the comments below.